Hello! Let's talk about money. I feel like money is always wildly taboo to discuss, but very interesting and necessary as a discussion topic. I'm going to delve into how much I spend and make as a college student with a part-time job and a small YouTube channel. I'd also like to recognize the insane amount of privilege that is behind a lot of what I'm saying in this video. From someone who is a middle-class, college-educated white gal, I know there are so many people who did not win the birth lottery and will never have the opportunities I had growing up. Alright, let's get into it! This was like a trend a long time ago, and you know, I'm just not doing it because in this quarantine times, I'm running out of quarantine tings. Dang it, I messed up the joke. In this quarantine time, I'm running out of quarantines to do. I write down every single thing I spend every single day, and I've been doing this since I started bullet journaling in January. When you write it down, you really gotta face that and be like, I did spend that, didn't I? This spread also includes my monthly income, which we'll get to later. If you don't care about my spending habits and just want to get to the tea on how much I make on YouTube, you can just skip ahead. Lastly, I also have a totals category that includes my budget for the month, the totals of how much I actually spent, and a comparison of the two. So I want to go over what I spend in a month as a college student, and because times are weird and wonky right now, my spending habits are not normal, so we're going to look at the month of February when my spending habits were normal. So I spent a total of $235 in February. Now, I'd like to say a quick disclaimer and say that this does not cover my basic needs. This is just unnecessary spending, like entertainment and things like that, which I'll break down in a second. But first, I think it's important to acknowledge what I actually pay for in the agreement that I have with my parents, which I am super blessed and privileged to have. As soon as I graduate, I am completely on my own and I'm going to be paying for everything coming this May. Scary. But throughout college, my parents have paid for my rent and my grocery bills. Any extra things like clothes, going out to eat, entertainment, books, anything else like that, I pay for on my own. So food. I spent $80 on food. This isn't only my highest category. Honestly, the main thing to do in college, for me at least, is going out to eat with friends. I probably eat out like twice a week, and that really adds up quickly. Transportation, I spent $19.50. This includes basically just Ubers. I don't have a car, and my city has a really great bus system, so I rarely Uber unless I'm going somewhere further away or if it's nighttime and I don't feel comfortable walking. Shopping. This was actually my largest spending category this month. It was $129. What did I even buy? Oh. I got an Amazon membership, like a full year one, so that was like $60, so that was a big chunk of my shopping. Normally it's not that high. Okay, honestly I'm looking back and it's like that high every month. But why? Oh. I'm just like making all these realizations about my finances right now. Okay, here's my greatest tip. I always have one big thing that I somehow have to purchase each month. Like in January, it was my boyfriend's birthday and our 1-year anniversary, and so those were 2 big days of spending for me. And so I spent a lot more than I normally would, or so I thought. So every month there's somehow one surprise thing that comes up. So I would say always account for there to be like a $50 to $100 surprise purchase that you don't see coming. My rent is $5.50 a month, which is pretty cheap compared to a lot of my friends, and that's because I live with 5 other people. There's 6 of us total. It's a 3-bedroom, 2 per room, so if we weren't sharing the rooms, it would be about $1,000 a month. Honestly, having roommates is a great way to save money. I would also say that definitely live in a dorm your freshman year if you can afford it. I thought it was so much fun and such an experience, but it did cost a lot more money than if I found outside housing. So after my first year, I don't feel like it was worth it to stay in the dorms, just purely for cost, and I kind of already did that experience and wanted more space. Okay, I just looked it up and I spent $43 on groceries in February. I feel like that's not a lot for most people. I don't know, what do most people spend on groceries? I eat a lot of pasta, which may not be the best for you, but it's really cheap. I also eat out a lot, which keeps my grocery bill down, but my other bill higher. When I was in high school, I was known as the photography girl. I did some freelance work shooting friends' weddings, senior pictures, things like that, and I'm super grateful I got to do a job I really loved throughout high school and never had to work in the service industry, although I probably could have made a lot more money with the stable income of a service industry job. But regardless, I had about $800 saved up coming into college, and I just about ran out of money at the end of my freshman year. To put that in perspective, I now spend about 1/3 of that a month. Freshman year was honestly just a different time, so I would say if you're going to be a freshman, especially if you're living on campus, expect to spend a lot less. I ate at the dining hall for almost every meal, and even if I went to like dinner with a friend, we would go to dinner at the dining hall. I rarely ate out. There were also a ton of like free freshman activities, at least at my college. I go to the University of Texas at Austin, and so me and all my friends would go to all these free fun activities, and we didn't really leave campus honestly that much at all. So I have three main sources of income. Number one, YouTube. Number two, my part-time job. And number three, freelance work. So I'm just gonna go over quickly what I made in February, and then I'll kind of break it down. So I made just over $500 from my part-time job in February, and then I made $195 from YouTube ad revenue. And I did not do any freelance work in February, but I do have freelance work from other months that I'll talk about. So starting off with YouTube.
I spent 50 years trying to explain how YouTube monetization works, so I'm just going to jump in and give you the SparkNotes version. Basically, how much money you make on YouTube depends solely on your number of views and your CPM. This is basically how much you get paid per 1,000 views that you get on your videos. Your CPM can be vastly different on each of your videos, and so because of this, I don't rely on YouTube as a steady source of income since I just don't know how much money I'm going to make each month.
I also want to include some numbers of how much I make at different view levels on videos, because I always find that really interesting when YouTubers talk about that. So my most viewed video has just under 600,000 views, and I've made a total of $1,600 from that video, and that is the most I've ever made from one video by far, like by far. And then another really interesting example, my girl learned to skateboard in 2 days video, and I have made $322 to date from that video. In comparison, I have a swimsuit try-on video with 113,000 views, and it has made $30. And the reason that is exactly dependent on what demographics are watching the videos, whether they're going to realistically click on the ads that are being shown on it, if they are clicking on the ads. So that just goes to show, even if your video gets a lot of views, you could make a ton of money or barely any money from it. And that is the perfect example of the exact reason why I cannot rely on ad revenue, even if one of my videos does really well, because I just don't know how much money it's gonna make. So I work part-time at the University of Texas at my school, and I film our online classes, which, side note, has been very crazy now that all of our classes are online with everything going on, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, I make $11 an hour in this job, and I work about 12 hours a week. This is my solid income that I always rely on having for my budgeting. I didn't do any freelance work in February, so I don't have any freelance income from February, but I do have a couple of jobs that I do every year that I pretty much know I can rely on because I've been working for these people for years, creating video content for them, and I make a lot more money hourly for freelance work, but it is not as often. Like I said, I only do about 3 jobs a year, so it's not something I can rely on every month, but when I know it's coming, it's some good money for that month, you know? I would say to start out working 10 hours a week, and it's honestly even so privileged that I can even say how many hours I want to work because I don't rely on that to survive. So of course you have to work however many hours you need to work to pay your bills, but if you do have the luxury of not having to rely on a part-time job and you're only using it for extra spending money, then I would say to start out at 10 hours a week. I would 100% recommend getting a job where you can do homework at your job. I know this isn't always plausible, there's not a lot of jobs where that's possible, but if you can, to me, in my opinion, it's more worth it to do a job where you do have downtime where you can work on homework than to do a different higher paying job. For example, if you work at In-N-Out and say make $12 an hour, but you're constantly working during the entirety of that time, versus at my job, I make $11 an hour, but say I can work on homework for an hour or two each shift, then that might be a lot more worth it for you than making that extra dollar per hour because you're also fulfilling your school needs while at work, so you'll have the time to work more hours. I would also make sure, even if you're only asking to work about 10 hours a week starting out, that your job has a flexibility to add on more hours if you want. I now work about 20 hours a week, which I don't think I would have been comfortable doing like a year ago when I started my job, just because I wasn't used to balancing a part-time job, social time, and schoolwork, but now I feel comfortable doing that, and I'm so lucky that my job was able to give me those extra 10 hours when I asked for it. I would also highly consider growth. when you come to a company. I think everyone in the interview should ask where are opportunities that I can grow, whether that's in responsibility or in paycheck. I could end up making more at my job in the long term with raises than if I started out at a job making an extra $1 an hour with no opportunity for raises. My last tip for a part-time job, this is kind of an odd one because if you're not a senior, it's probably just not on your radar like at all, is what you want to do after graduation. If you're in a job where it looks really great on your resume, for after graduation, that's obviously going to be a lot bigger bonus to you in the long term. And then my last tip, I know everyone says this all the time, they're like, have multiple sources of income, and I was like, well, okay honey, like, sorry, you're an influencer and you have like sponsored posts, YouTube, like affiliate links. Everyone always talks about like all these multiple sources of income, but for the average person, there's not that many sources of income besides like one part-time job. But I do think there are ways you could have 2 or 3 sources of income depending on kind of what you do and what skills you have. Even if you literally just like have a part-time job and walk dogs or make some kind of art thing that you can sell, I feel like there are ways to realistically have 2 to 3 sources of income, and that's a great way. If you lose one source of income, you have something else to fall back on. If you guys have literally any questions, like I will answer them about finances down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to watch me 1 to 2 times a week. Okay, I'll see you guys next week.